Welcome to this video on Google Sheets for Microsoft Excel users. My name is Kyle Pugh, and I'm going to take you through a series of videos that introduce you to tools that you're familiar with inside of Microsoft Excel and how they translate to Google Sheets. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Google Sheets is Google's spreadsheet tool. It's much like Microsoft Excel. Inside of Excel, you've got your workbook, you've got your worksheets, and inside those worksheets, you'll be creating things like spreadsheets, tables, charts, pivot tables. You might run sorting and filtering commands and all sorts of goodies. Well, inside of Google Sheets, you've got a lot of those same tools. It's a spreadsheet tool. So inside of there, we'll create spreadsheets, we'll create tables and do filtering and sorting. We can create pivot tables and charts and create dashboards. And again, all sorts of goodies all through this tool. So my goal during these lectures is to introduce you to some of the tools you might be familiar with inside of Excel and how those translate to Google Sheets. Now, our first step before we can get access to Google Sheets, we need a Google account. Now, for many of you, you may already have a Google account set up. If you've got something like a Gmail account, or you're on YouTube, maybe you've got a YouTube channel, maybe you just get on YouTube and watch videos and you like and you subscribe. Well, if you're subscribing to YouTube channels, then you've probably got a Google account. Well, what we need to do is open up a browser, and because Google Sheets is a Google tool, we're going to be working inside of the Google browser, or Chrome. Well, here I've got Chrome open. I've gone to google.com, and in the top right corner of this page, just right there above my head, we've got the sign in button. Now, if you've already gotten an account, then you won't see the sign in, but you'll see your little avatar image picture up there in the corner. And from there, you can gain access to your account. Now, if you don't have one, I can click on sign in, and from here, you'll have an option to create an account right there. Now, this is a completely free process. Google gives you loads of tools, not just Google Sheets, but you'll see things like slides and docs and all sorts of other goodies inside there. Completely free for you to use. So, first step, if you don't have one, create an account. If you have one, make sure you're signed in through the Chrome browser. Then we'll take a look at where you gain access to Google Sheets and how you can work inside of Google Sheets. All right, so I've got my Google account. I'm currently signed in all through the Chrome browser. You can see up here in the top right corner, I no longer got the sign in, but I've got my little avatar image up there in the corner. So I am actively signed into my Google account. Now, from this location, I want to gain access to Google Sheets. That way I can start creating and maintaining and manipulating the spreadsheets through this great tool. Well, directly to the left of my little icon there, I've got what looks like a little waffle maker icon or button. It's just a series of dots and rows and columns. From here, I can give that a click, and I can find all the various Google apps at my disposal through this account. Now, if I scroll through, you're going to see all sorts of goodies at your disposal. The one that I'm looking for here is called Sheets. Now, default, you may need to start scrolling down towards the lower half of this menu in order to find that Sheets command. I'm going to give you a little tip. This menu right here, this apps menu, is customizable. If I click and hold down on one of these icons, such as Sheets, I can drag that icon around and I can move it towards the top to give me quicker, easier access to those common commands for me. So I'm just going to drag it up there to the top. You can try it out. Just click and hold down with your mouse and drag it to the location that you want it inside that menu. Now I'm going to move my head off the screen here, just so you can see a little bit more and gain a little bit more real estate inside the window. So once you've got Sheets wherever you like it to be, I'm going to go ahead and give that a click. It'll take just a moment. Now, Google Sheets is a browser tool. That means that we're going to work with our data, our spreadsheets, our tables, our charts, and so on, all through Google Sheets inside of the browser. This is not a standalone desktop application that you might be familiar with the full desktop version of Microsoft Excel. If you work with Office 365, you might be familiar with things like Excel Online or Word Online. Well, this is very similar. It's all through the browser. All the tools are built in through this app inside the browser. We're also going to get access to what's called My Drive or your Google Drive. The Google Drive would be like a OneDrive account that you might have through your Office 365 subscription. Here, we can store all of our files inside of our Google Drive, and so we can gain access to those files just about anywhere we have internet connection. On your phone, your mobile device, your laptop, your desktop system, wherever you got internet connection, we can sign into our Google account and get access to those files and get access to the apps to help us maintain and create and edit those documents. So when I click on the Google Sheets icon from that apps menu, I get taken by default to the startup page, kind of the welcome page to Google Sheets. From here, we can see at the top that I've got various types of spreadsheets that I can create. I've got the option to start from scratch, just a blank spreadsheet, and I've got the option to get into spreadsheet templates. And there are a number of different templates that we can poke around in. If you're unfamiliar with templates, they're just predefined documents ready for us to dump our data in. For example, you might have the need for a monthly budget. Well, rather than creating it from scratch, we could use this template that gives us the foundation, and then we can start dumping our data into their template. And there's a number of templates. I'm only seeing 5 of them on my screen, but I can go to the template gallery and you're going to find many more at your disposal. Then directly below, we will see recent documents. So if you've been working in Google Sheets, or somebody sent you files, you've downloaded them from your email, whatever, we can get access to them right here, easy at our disposal once again. Now, this is just a startup page. Well, I want to be able to create a document. And like I said, you've got various options for you to do this. Now, before we do that, let's take a look at Google Drive. To gain access to our My Drive or Google Drive, where you're going to store your online documents, in the top left corner, we've got our Sheets icon right there. We're on the Sheets startup page, but directly to the left, you have what's called the hamburger menu. Just the 3 little bars there. Looks kind of like a hamburger, right? Top bun, bottom bun, stuff in the middle. If I give that a click, I'm going to get a little flyout menu with some other tools that we can get access to. We've got Docs, which would be like Microsoft Word. We got Sheets, which is what we're discussing here, be like Microsoft Excel. And you've got Slides, which is comparable to PowerPoint. And then you've got an option for online forms, a very slick, very powerful tool. Down at the bottom of this menu, you've got Drive. Let's give that a click. I'm going to go to Drive. This opens up in a second tab for me. And your Drive, or the My Drive, your Google Drive, is your online environment where you can store and manage your files. From here, I can upload files, I can create new files, I can organize those files into folders, and many other operations here. You can see by default, through my free account, my Google account here, I have 15 gigabytes of storage space at our disposal. And like I said, we can organize documents here, and we can create and maintain them all from right here. If I go up to the My Drive button, I give that a click, you're going to get various operations. New folder, file upload, folder upload, and the ability to create new documents and store them right here. Now, the Google Drive, it's a cloud drive. It lives in the cloud, right? It lives online. Anywhere you have internet connection, you have the potential of getting access to these documents and then utilizing the various tools like Google Sheets and Docs and Slides and your online forms all in one location. Again, if you're familiar with Office 365, then you're probably familiar with the OneDrive service that Microsoft offers. Very similar. Your OneDrive and Google Drive, very, very similar. Online storage where you can organize and maintain your documents. All right, we're going to come back to the OneDrive once we start creating and uploading documents. But for now, that's just a quick preview to your Google Drive. Now I want to go back into Sheets. So we got a couple of different ways we can do this from the Google Drive environment. We can close this tab because it did open up in a second tab, and I've got my Google Sheets tab just there on the left-hand side. I can also go back to the little waffle maker icon, and from here I can gain access back to Google Sheets. Well, whatever operation you want to perform, because it did open in a second tab for me, I'm just going to close that one and get back to my Google Sheets environment. Now, first thing I want to do here is take a look at how we're going to create a new spreadsheet. Well, all through the startup page of Google Sheets, I'm just going to go to start a new spreadsheet, and I'm going to create a new blank spreadsheet. So I'll give that a click. It'll take just a moment. Again, this is all through the browser, so there might be a little bit of lag through loading time. But once again, now through the browser, I got access to the Google Sheets application. Now, if we sit back and just look at this for a moment, if you're a Microsoft Excel user, this is going to look very familiar to you, with some slight differences. And we'll talk about those differences. But for the most part, I want to talk about how there's similarities between the two and how you can take the skills that you have inside of Google and translate them, your skills inside of Microsoft Excel and translate those into Google Sheets. Well, looking at it here, top of the screen, we've got your menus like File, Edit, View, Insert, and so on. And then directly below that, we've got a toolbar with some common commands at your fingertips. This is where you're going to find all your features inside of Google Sheets. Directly below that, you're going to see your name box and your formula bar. Look familiar? Use Excel. That's the exact same setup that we have. We've got the name box, we've got the formula bar, and then directly below that, you've got your worksheet. So you can see currently here, very, very bottom of the screen, I've got a single sheet in there, sheet 1. Right? Again, look familiar? It's practically Excel. Right to the left of that, we've got the operation to add additional worksheets, as well as kind of a bigger hamburger menu where we can gain access to all the various worksheets in this one spreadsheet file, this one sheets file. So the worksheet itself is still broken up into columns and rows. Right, we got our ABC along the top, we got our 1, 2, 3 down the left-hand side, and then we've got all the individual cells within those columns and rows. So this is just a quick preview to the interface of Google Sheets. Again, if you're a Microsoft Excel user, there should be a lot of similarities that are sticking out to you right here. Okay? Yes, there's some visual differences in there, but you got your tools at the top, you got your main working environment there in the middle, and you got your status bar where you can get access to things like your other sheets, renaming them, organizing them, and so on. Take a moment, poke around in there. You can pause this video. Just take a look at the environment and see what's already familiar to you. All right, so we've got a new Google Sheet document open in front of us. And we've taken a quick preview look at the interface itself. Well, let's try inputting some data here. Now, what we're going to do here is just something really simple, just to get a feel for navigating within the sheet itself and entering data. And once again, if you're a Microsoft Excel user, this is going to feel, you're going to feel right at home, practically the same. So let's say I want to create just a simple, quick monthly budget. So we got our columns and rows there, all of our cells. I'm going to start off inside of A4. So I'm just going to click in A4 and I'm going to put a header in here. Let's just call it bills. All right, I'm going to hit my enter key, drops us down a cell, and I'm going to create a short list of some monthly bills. So I might have things like rent, let's see, gas, insurance. Yeah, we got food. We got to have candy. Yeah, you got to have a single line item just for your candy. Cool. All right, and we can keep going here. We can add some additional bills that you might have. I'm gonna hit my enter key one more time just to drop below there. And for me, I'm visualizing here that I'm gonna eventually have a row of some totals. So for each month, I want to get a grand total for those bills for that month. So I'm gonna put a total in here and we'll call it good. I'll hit my enter key. All right, so I've got a column of bills. I'm gonna jump up to B4 and now I want some column headers here. These are just gonna be months for 2023. Okay. Currently, as of this recording, it is March 2023. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to say March 2023. I'll hit my tab key, move me over one, and we'll say April 2023, and that's good. Now, if you're familiar with Microsoft Excel, you might use what we call the autofill command, that little box in the corner of your cell selector, right? We use that inside of Excel to do several things, but one of them is to fill in patterns of data. For example, here, we've got 2 months, March and April. Well, I wanted March, April, May, June, July, August, and so on. Well, as we saw, I could type those in manually, right? We could do that. Or I'm going to select both those cells. I'll get both the B4 and C4 cells selected. And I'm going to go to that little box in the corner. And I'm going to left click and just drag over a few cells. And it's going to autocomplete or autofill that pattern for me, increasing each one to the next month. So I got March, April, May, June, July, August, and so on. You can keep going here. All right, make sure you try that one out. This is something simple right here. We're just creating a simple little spreadsheet, just getting a feel for, hey, I work inside of Excel. This feels pretty similar here. I can dump my data in there. Got some row labels, got some column labels. Maybe I want to put another total over here because eventually I'll fill this up with some totals for each bill across all the months. Whatever it might be. But we got a feel for inputting data inside of a Google Sheet spreadsheet. So try this out. Then we're going to take a look at some other features, how to import documents, maybe documents you've already created inside of Excel. Somebody has emailed them to you, get them into your Google Drive, and from here, start to work with them inside of Google Sheets. So we started our first spreadsheet inside of Google Sheets. Cool. Right? We've dumped some data in there. Now we need some numeric data for the bill amounts. We need some calculations and so on. Well, before we get to that, we've started the document. I want to save the document. That way later I can go back and work with it. I can always download it. I can share it with others, whatever I need to do, but I need to save the document first. Well, typically, in order for us to save this, I would go to my File menu, and inside of here, I go look for Save. Well, remember, we're in the browser. Right? This is a live environment. We're inside of Google Sheets. If you look through that menu, File, I don't see anything in here about save. We got new and open and import and make a copy. That's close. That's close. Share, email, download, rename, move, and so on. Right? But nothing in there about save. This is one of the beauties of utilizing an online environment such as Google Sheets. It's live. It's going to save for you. But what we need to do first is give it a name. So at the top of the screen, we've got our menus, but directly above that, we've got our name of the document. Currently, it says Untitled Spreadsheet. Well, I'm going to click into that box, and I'm going to give this a name. I'm just going to call this Monthly Budget 2023. So I've now named the document. I'm going to hit my Enter key. Whoop. I've named it, but I've also saved it. And now Google Sheets is going to start saving it regularly for me. It'll keep track of it. I don't have to go back to the File tab and hit the Save. I don't have to look for that. I don't have to remember to hit the Save button. It's doing the work for me. Now, directly to the right of the name, we've got 3 little icons there. I've got a little star icon. This is going to help you identify documents that are important to you for later when you want to look for them and bring them back up again. You've got a move command there. Looks like a little folder. Remember the Google Drive, My Drive? We can create folders in there and you can start moving them around and organizing them inside those folders. And that's something you can do right there. And then we've got the status of the document. Currently, it's in the cloud. We're saving it. We're good to go. Green light all around. Now, I want to see that I've actually saved it, right? We've got the name there, but I still need to say, did we save this? Well, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Sheets Home button, just on the left-hand side, the little Google Sheets icon there. This will take us back to the home page that we started on. And from here, I can see my recent document there, Monthly Budget 2023, last opened by me, 1204. It's right there. we've saved the document. Now we can also go back to the Google Drive or the My Drive environment. If I go back to the little hamburger menu, I'll go back down to Drive, and from here, I can see my document, monthly budget 2023, and it's a Google Sheet document right there. Now I can always create folders. I can go up to the My Drive, I can create a new folder, give it a name, I can drag files into there, I can save the files into there and organize your content. All right, not a whole lot to it. Just back inside your Sheet document, you've created the document. I can click on that to reopen it. And from here, create it, give it a name, and you're good to go. Google Sheets or your Google account will take over from there and make the saves for you. So make sure you try this out. Get up there, name the document, navigate back to the home. You can identify it there. You can go back to the Google Drive account and you can identify the document there as well, right? I always want to make sure, is it saving it? Is it saved? Is it there? Right? Just make sure. And from there, you can reopen it and you can continue your edits. So we've created a document inside of Google Sheets and we've saved that document to our Google Drive account. Now, what if you've already got an Excel document and now you want to bring that into Google Sheets? Well, it's actually a really simple process. So I've got a document here. I'm going to drag a window over here. This is in a folder on my computer, and I'm going to give you the opportunity just directly down below this video, down inside the description of the video, you'll find a link to the OfficeNewb blog where you can download this file and follow along with me. This is an Excel file currently. So I created this inside of Excel. I now want to bring it into my Google Drive so I can open it up inside of Google Sheets and I can work with the document there. So make sure you grab that file. And while you're down below, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I regularly update data and upload documents or videos to this channel about Microsoft Excel tools and various other tools that are going to help you become more productive. So look for that file down below. Give it a like if you're enjoying it and subscribe if you want to be alerted when new content is uploaded. Now, once you've downloaded that file someplace onto your computer, you can open up that folder on your computer. You got your My Drive open, your Google account. All I'm going to do is grab that file and just drag it into the browser window within my Google Drive environment. Now you can see down below, drag files to upload them to My Drive. All I'm going to do is drag it in there. I'm going to release the mouse button, give it just a moment. It's not very big of a document, but I now have my Google Sheets exercises -01 document inside of my My Drive account. That's it. Just drag and drop and you're done. Now we also have the option to go up to My Drive, and from here I can do a file upload and I can go navigate my computer and grab a file or multiple files and do it through this nice little interface as well. But I find drag and drop, it's awesome and it's super quick to do. All right. Now it is an Excel document, but I can open that up and I can start to work with it inside of Google Sheets. Let's try it out. So I'm just going to go ahead and give that a double click. Let's open that document up. Now, because this is an Excel file, this will take just slightly longer to open up and be prepared for us to start to work with. Now, this file, it's a pretty simple Excel file. It doesn't have a whole lot of additional bells and whistles and features that are specific to Excel. If the file did have something more specific to Excel that Google Sheets does not have, then we might run into some issues with our data. But at this point, no conflicts, nothing happening to us. So you can see here, it's got multiple sheets at the bottom. If you go ahead and click through them, you can take a look at the samples that we're going to be working with here. But this was an Excel file. You can see up here at the top by the name that it is a .xlsx file. It's an Excel file, but I've got it open inside of Google Sheets. So make sure you try this out. Grab that file down below, look for that link, download it, drag it into your Google Drive account, and then open it up inside of Google Sheets. Now, once you've opened up an Excel file inside of Google Sheets, it's still an Excel file, right? We see the .xlsx there at the top of the screen. Whoop, right there. Now we do have the option to convert this file to a Google Sheets file. Really simple to do. If I go up to my File tab, just here inside of Google Sheets, I can scroll on down and there will be an option right there, Save as Google Sheets. I'll go ahead and give that a click. It'll take just a moment, but it's going to make the conversion. You can see here that it actually opened up inside of a new tab for me. And I've got my Google Sheets exercises -01 document, and I no longer have that extension .xlsx. If I move over to the previous tab, I've still got it there. And if I go to my Google Drive, the My Drive environment, I can see I've got two versions of that document now. Both Google Sheets exercises -01, but one of them is an Excel file, and the other one is a Google Sheets document. Now I can keep both of them if I'd like to. If you'd like to get rid of one, if I right click on the Excel version, I do have an option in here to remove. Now, when you remove a document from your My Drive or your Google Drive account, it does put it into the recycle bin, the trash bin. And it sits in there, I believe, for 30 days until it gets purged by the system. But you do have access to your trash can right here. So just like your recycle bin on your computer's desktop, we do have access to that recycle bin, and you can drag files out of there. Okay? Or you can just empty the recycle bin as well, the trash bin. So I'm going to keep it there for right now, but we do have two versions of that document. We want to keep an eye on the little icon that we're looking at. So the one here, that's your Google Sheets, and the one with the X, that's your Excel document. So make sure you try this out. Again, just in the document itself, File, and you'll have the option to save as Google Sheets. I don't have it anymore. Now let's make a copy. But try that out. And just so I don't get confused, I'm going to close out of the .xlsx version. Just get that off my screen, and now I've got just the Google Sheets version open in front of me. So make sure you try that out. Now that we've got the Excel file open inside of Google Sheets, let's take a look at creating calculations. Specifically, let's take a look at utilizing the sum function inside of Google Sheets. Now, the sum function inside of Microsoft Excel is the most common function that people experience as you work with calculations inside of Excel. Well, it's actually no different here inside of Google Sheets, and the function looks exactly the same. So I'm going to pop my head off here again. Let's take a look at the sum function. Now, first thing I'm going to do here is just zoom in a little bit more so we can see it clearer on my screen. So I'm going to go to my View menu. I'm going to go down to Zoom, and I'm going to go to 150%, just to make it a little bit bigger. My eyes are terrible. All right, there we go. So we've got our sales individuals. We got our various weeks, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we've got a weekly total row. I want to get a sum for each week, and I want to get a sum for each salesperson. Well, if I hop down into cell B10, I'm going to start to create this sum function. Well, inside of Excel, what do you start your formulas with? What's the first character? Equals. I'm going to make sure I'm in there. I'm going to hit my equal sign, and there we have it. Now, I'm starting a formula, but Google Sheets is a very smart application. This kind of surprised me the first time I saw it. I said equals, and oh, look at that. It's already assuming and guessing correctly in this case that I want to sum up that data. Look at that. So sum B5 through B9, it's already giving me a total there. How awesome is that? If I just hit my tab key here, tab, I'm done. It summed it up for me. I didn't have to type it all the way out. We could. I could jump over to the next cell and say equals sum, open parentheses. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I see what you're doing. I know you want to do it on your own, but do you really want to do it on your own? I mean, I'm going to do it for you. Well, I could keep going. C5, colon, C9, close the parentheses. It's just like Microsoft Excel. I'll hit my tab key again, finish that off. And there we have it. Not a whole lot to it, right? Equal sum, fill in your range of cells, and you're good to go. Now, earlier, we used that little box in the corner to continue the pattern for the months inside of our monthly budget spreadsheet. Well, what happens if we try it here with the formula? Well, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to go ahead and drag that over. Look at that. Let's see, 42,555. That's cool for week 2. What do we got here? We got 46,630 for week 3, and it's summing up D5 to D9. That looks correct. And then E5 to E9. That looks good. All right, let's try another one here. Top over to the F column, F5, and I'll say equals. And look at that. It's so cool. Hit my enter key. 36,245 was just confirmed. B5 to E5. That looks good. And I'll drag that down. There we go. There's all my totals. Right? This is our sum function inside of Google Sheets. Try this out. All right, so we've got the sum function. Again, the most commonly used function inside of all of Microsoft Excel. And the same here inside of Google Sheets. It's a very common function, right? It's just adding up a range of cells. And it's awesome. Most common one. Well, that's great. It's great that Google Sheets has that function as well. How about something a little more complex? Does Google Sheets have an if function? Let's take a look. So I'm still on the first worksheet in here. We just got doing the sum for the various weeks and the individual sales individuals. So now I want to hop over to this H column. This was the goal met column. And I want to identify if the individual sales people, if their total, their monthly total here for December 2022 has met or exceeded the 34,000 monthly goal. If they met it, then I want to say, yes, the goal was met. If they didn't make it, then I'm going to say no, and they didn't make the goal. Okay? So this is the case of an if function. If you haven't used the if function inside of Excel, I highly recommend it. It's perhaps one of my favorite functions inside of Excel. It's going to allow you to create a condition such as if F5 is greater than or equal to I2, then give me a yes. If it's not, then give me a no. So let's take a look at how this if function works inside of Google Sheets. And if you use it inside of Excel, again, it's going to look very familiar. All right, let's hop over to the H5 cell. So I'm going to start to type this in. I'll say equals if, and I'm going to open up a parentheses, and it's got 3 little arguments for us. The logical expression, that's your condition, that's what you're checking, if this is true. Then we have a value if true. So if that condition, that expression rings true, then we tell it what to do here. If it's not true, then we tell it what to do if it's false. All right. So if F5, there we go, is greater than or equal to I2, we're good. All right. I'm going to place a comma in there. I'm done with the logical expression, the condition. If F5 is greater than or equal to I2. Now I want to tell it what to do if that's true. So inside of quotes, I'm going to say yes. That's all I want to return. Then I'll do a comma, and I'm going to tell it what to do if it's false. Now I'm wrapping them inside of quotes because they're a text value. I want to literally return that value. I'm going to close the parentheses, and I'll hit my enter key. And there's my yes. All right. So that's just for H. James, right? I'll go back to H5. We got if F5 is greater than or equal to I2, then give me a yes. If not, give me a no. So the exact same function that you work with inside of Microsoft Excel, it lives here inside of Google Sheets as well, your if function. Now, I want to fill that in for the rest of these sales individuals, K. Dunn, L. Carey, R. Smith, and D. O'Brien. I want to know if they all met the goal or not. All right, let's try it out. So I'm going to go back to that little fill box there. I'm going to left click and just drag that down. What do you think? What do you think? Let's see. Yep. We know the first one made it. H. James, 36,245 is greater than or equal to 34,000. We dragged it down. 31,475 is not greater than or equal to 34,000, but it put a yes in there. Well, you might be looking at me and want to smack me and say, well, that's because of, well, take a look at this. This is another one that really surprised me the first time I worked inside of Google Sheets, and I did something like this right here. Well, if I look at the formula, it's making a suggestion. It says, oh, that's cool, right? You use the fill command. Good job, right? You can drag that down. But did you know your original formula there said, hey, go grab this cell right here, grab that cell, and then compare it to this cell right here. Boop, right there. Good, right? Now, when we dragged it down to this one, it said, hey, go grab that cell right there, but we needed to compare it to this one right here. In reality, what happened is it compared it to the one directly below it. It's using what's called a relative reference. So Google Sheets says, I see what you did there, and I'm going to correct it for you. So if we look at the suggestion here, it says F5 greater than or equal to I2, but they got the dollar signs in there, making it an absolute reference. So if I just say, okay, yes, I want that suggestion, I'll hit the little check mark, I'm going to accept it, and it's now corrected my formulas. So if I go back to the first one, I can look at the formula here. It's now got the dollar signs for $I, $2, making that an absolute reference. Then if I go down another cell, it'll correct that one as well, and so on. Done. So cool. It did it for me. I didn't have to do a whole lot there. Very cool. Try it out. This is your if function. If you're not familiar with the if function, what we just did right here is exactly the same inside of Microsoft Excel. Try it out. Let's take our functions inside of Google Sheets a step further. Now I get so many questions about, well, what's the difference between Excel and Google Sheets? And can Google Sheets do this? I already do it inside of Excel already, but can Google Sheets do this? Well, in a lot of cases, yes, with some caveats in there. There are some features inside of Excel that don't transition into Google Sheets, right? That's what makes Excel stand apart from other applications. They've got their tools and they do a really good job at it. But there are quite a few features inside of Excel that do translate into Google Sheets. We've seen a sum function, the most common function. We've seen an if function, something a little more advanced. Well, let's take that if function a step further. Let's talk about nesting, how you can take one function and place it inside of another function to get it to do more. Well, take a look. Here's the scenario. So we got this bonus status. Our bonus status says, in order for the user, the salesperson, to hit the bonus, they need to have done two things. One, they need to have met the goal. Was the goal met? Yes, they had to have met that. And each week, each sales week has to be $8,000 or more. Okay? So here's my goal. I'm going to create a formula utilizing the if that checks for those things. Did they get the goal? And did they meet $8,000 or more for each week? Well, in order for me to test multiple conditions inside of an if, I need to nest an and function within the logical expression of the if. Take a look. This is nesting functions. So I'm going to go into I5 and I'm going to create an if. I'm going to say equals if. I'm going to open up a parentheses. And the first argument there, we saw this earlier, is your logical expression. So remember, our logical expression has a couple of conditions. They had to have met the goal, so they had to have said yes inside of H5. And each week has to be $8,000 or more. So in order for me to do multiple expressions here, I'm going to bring in an and function. So this is nested within that if. I'll say and, open parentheses, and my first one, I'll grab H5, and I want to make sure that that is equal to yes. Okay. There's our first expression. Cool. Then I'm going to do comma, and I'm going to bring in another condition here. And I'm going to say, I want to make sure that the minimum, here's another function that's inside of Excel and Google Sheets. The min function, it looks at a range of cells and it returns the minimum value from that range. So I'll say min, open parentheses. I'm going to grab this range here, B5 to E5. I'm going to close the parentheses and I want to know if it's greater than or equal to $8,000. 8,000. Cool. So now I've got two expressions in there, all nested within the and, which is nested within the if. So now I'm going to close the and. I'll close that parentheses for the and I'm now done with the logical expressions of my if. I'm going to do a comma. Now I'm going to tell it what to do if those two things are true. I'm going to say bonus. Yes, you made it. You qualified. You passed those two expressions, those logical expressions. Well, what if they don't, right? We said bonus if they got it. I could say you're fired. Oop, not filed. You're fired. No bonus. Hit the road, Jack. Whatever. We can tell it what to do if it's not true. Maybe you're fired's a bit harsh. How would that be to open up a document and, hey, look. Ooh, what happened there? That'd be terrible. That'd be terrible. I'll hit my enter key and look at that. Suggested autofill, and it did it all for me. I'll hit my little check mark there to say, yeah, I accept it. So let's just confirm. So bonus, yes, and everything's greater than $8,000. All right, you're fired. They got to know they didn't hit the monthly goal. So yeah, you're fired. Bonus, yes, everything's greater than 8,000. You're fired. Well, they met the goal, but a couple of their weeks was less than $8,000. Again, harsh. All right, but this is utilizing functions inside of a Google Sheets document and nesting functions within there. If you do nesting inside of Excel, exactly the same here. Let's take a break from functions and calculations inside of Google Sheets, and let's take a look at another common feature that you might perform inside of Microsoft Excel and how it translates into Google Sheets. We're going to take a look at filtering data. Now I'm still inside the same exercise file, and I'm looking at the employee records worksheet here. Now it's a nice little list, or what we might refer to as a table, but here we've got some column headings along the top, and then we got rows of records down below. Roughly, let's see, my numbers aren't updating right there, but we've got roughly 30 records inside there, if I remember correctly. We got a handful of records. Well, now I want to filter the data. I want to be able to sort the data. How do we do that inside of Google Sheets? Well, once again, this should feel pretty comfortable coming from Microsoft Excel. Let's say sorting. I want to sort the list, and perhaps I want to sort it by last name. Well, I'll go to my last name column. I'm going to go to my data tab at the top, and from here we have an option to sort the sheet. Now, if we look closely, we can see that sort sheet by column B, A to Z, sort the sheet by column B, Z to A. It gives me a little bit of pause here. And I think, well, column B, okay, yeah, it is in column B, but it's the last name column that I want to sort. All right. Okay, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to go back to data and sort the sheet. And I'll say sort it A to Z. Uh-oh, something doesn't look right. Where'd my headers go? Oh, there they are. It's sorted the headers within that data as well. So I'm going to quickly undo that. I'm going to go up to my toolbar and I'm just going to hit the undo button or Control Z. Let's get those headers back to the top. Well, how can I get this to work properly? So here's what I'm going to do. If I go back to my data tab for a moment, there's sort sheet, and then there's also an option for sort range. Well, sort range is currently inactive. It's grayed out. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to select all my data there. I'm just going to press Control A. I click into my list somewhere. I'll press Control A, and that'll grab all the contiguous cells that contain data. All of my lists there. All right, that looks good. So now I'm going to go back to my data tab, and there's an option for sort range. And from here I can see that, oh wait, sort range by column C. It was B that I wanted to sort, right? Well, let's get back in there again. Sorted by A to Z or Z to A. I'm going to go to advanced sorting options. Here we go. This is looking better. My data does have a header row. Boop, I'll turn that on. And look at that. now I've got my headers in there. It's identified them. Oh, okay, good. So now I want to sort this by last name. I want to sort it by A to Z. I could add additional column sorts. So if I want to sort it by last name and then maybe department or hire date, I could add additional columns to sort by. For now, just last name, I'll hit sort. And I've now sorted the list by last name, keeping the headers there at the top. All right, so a little bit of a difference there. We just want to make sure that Google Sheets is recognizing this as one contiguous list and that we have headers there at the top. So I'm just selecting the list. Remember, Control A, boop, grab that list, data, sort range, advanced sorting options, and you got all those options right there. This should look semi-familiar to utilizing the advanced sort command inside of Excel. Very similar. Interface looks a little different, but the idea is the same. I'm going to cancel out. So that's sorting our list. How about filtering it? I want to search for just specific records. Well, to sort our list inside of Google Sheets, once again, I'll click into my list. I'm going to go back to data. And here I have an option for create a filter. I'll give that a click. Now at the top of my headers, you'll see the little drop down arrows, kind of similar to what you see inside of Excel. So I'm going to go to the department. I'll go to a little drop down there and I'm going to clear the filters or clear the selectors. And I'll say, I just want to see AC, AT, and HR. That's it. None of the rest. I'll hit OK. And I've now filtered my list. If I go back to the little arrow, it's now a little funnel because I'm actively filtering on that column. We got other operations in here. You got your sorting commands, you got your filters, filter by condition or color or by values, little selectors down below. So this should feel pretty comfortable to what Excel gives us. We're just translating it into Google Sheets. So try these two out. Get in there, try sorting your data, right? Make sure you select that list, data, advanced sort options, sort your list by last name or department or whatever you like. And try filtering as well. Get a feel for filtering your list right here inside of Google Sheets. Let's take a look at one more feature that's going to find pretty similar to a feature inside of Microsoft Excel, and it deals with filtering your list. Inside of Excel, we have a tool called slicers. Slicers are essentially interactive button press filters that we can use inside of our tables and our pivot tables. Well, let's take a look at how we can create a slicer inside of a table within Google Sheets. I'm still inside the employee records worksheet. I'm just going to make sure I'm clicked into that list somewhere. Now I've still got my filters, my little drop downs at the top, which is great. Go to the drop down, filtering and sorting commands right there. I want something a little more interactive, a little more in your face element, dashboard type element that users can just click on to filter their results. Well, if I click into my list, I'll go back to data and I'm going to go down to add a slicer. All right, this guy right here, this is your slicer. Now the interface is a bit different than Excel slicers. In my personal opinion here, I like the Excel slicers a little bit more. They're a little bit more interactive and a little bit more intuitive to use, okay? But the idea remains the same. So first, it's asking me to set up the slicer. Select a column. So I should have got this little window on the right-hand side, the slicer command, where I can come in here and I can pick a column. Let's say I want department. I want to be able to filter this list by the department. Now, for some reason, that window did not open for you. I just closed it out. If I click onto my slicer, I'm going to right-click, go to Edit Slicer, and you'll get that little slicer window back. But now, let's close it. I'm going to go to the little down arrow guy. And from here, you get a similar interface to the drop downs that you had inside your list. But here I'll say clear, and I say, I just want to see HR. That's it. Boop. Then I now filtered that list. I'll go back in there. It's not HR I want AT. Then I'll filter that list. But I love these interactive elements that are offered to help us and our end users get in there and quickly find what they're looking for. This is your slicer. Make sure you try it out. Click into your list, data, add a slicer, then you just got to set it up from there. You got to pick the column and then you're good to go. I'll go ahead and say select all to get everything back. Now, one more thing, if you want to remove the slicer, just right click on it and you got an option for delete slicer. I'll get rid of it. Try it out. So here's another one that I get all the time. Hey, inside of Microsoft Excel, I summarize my data from a list such as this, utilizing a pivot table. Does Google Sheets have pivot tables? Well, let's take a look. So still inside the same exercise file, I'm going to go down to sales data worksheet here. Now, we've got loads of records here. I can't remember how many exactly, but we've got quite a few records inside there. We got our column headings along the top. I want to be able to quickly summarize this data. Perhaps I want to see total sales by month or by year or by salesperson, or I want to know how many orders each salesperson is responsible for, or maybe get a breakdown of units sold for each region. Whatever it might be, I want to summarize this data. This is an excellent candidate for a pivot table, but I'm in Google Sheets. Let's take a look. So I'm going to click into my list. Doesn't matter where. Again, I'm on the sales data worksheet. I'll click into there. I'm going to go to the top of the screen, go to Insert, and I'm going to look for Pivot Table. There we got it. Pivot Table. It's there. They spelled it a little different with a lowercase t in table, but still Pivot Table. I'm going to give that a click. Now, the idea remains very similar to what we accomplished with pivot tables inside of Microsoft Excel, but you're going to find that the interface is a bit different. And so just disclaimer there, same tool, the interface is a bit different. So first step, it's recognized our data, A1 to H445, that's the bottom of our list, and I'm going to put this into a new sheet. So I'm going to hit create. All right. So now we get to start to create the pivot table. Well, on the right-hand side, we should have got our pivot table editor. This is like the field list inside of your Excel environment. And from here, we've got your rows, columns, values, and filters, just like in Excel. And you got your field list here on the right-hand side. Now, drag and drop. Let's say I want to get salesperson, and I'm going to drag that over to the rows section. You see how it kind of expanded? I'll drop it there. And now I'm starting to summarize those 400 plus records, and it's grouping it by salesperson. So now I want to know total sales for all those orders for each salesperson. So I'll grab sales, and I'm just going to drag that into the value section. Total sales for each salesperson. Well, let's take it a step further. Let's say I want to do it, break it down by year. So I'll grab year, and I'm going to drag that into the column section. And now I've got this nice little pivot table, kind of a spreadsheet, row labels, column labels, and summarizing data with totals inside that pivot table. Drag and drop, right? Should feel very similar to working with pivot tables inside of Excel, with a little bit of difference in there, mostly in the interface. Okay? We can add additional columns in there. We got an option to be able to turn totals off. Maybe I don't want those totals to show up inside there. I don't need them, right? So I'll take them off for those yearly columns, or I'll take them off for the rows for the salespeople, but I can deactivate those right there. That's kind of nice. That's a little more at your fingertips. Inside of Excel, you got to get up to the ribbon. You got to get into the pivot table options and modify that layout for subtotals there. But very similar layout, very similar structure, and really creation of summarizing your data based off of a list in a pivot table, but here inside of Google Sheets. So make sure you try this out. Again, it was the sales data tab. Just click into your list. It doesn't matter where. Go to Insert, Pivot Table, and then from there, create a new sheet, drag and drop, create your summary data. You can create something like I got here, or try something else out. All right, we've got pivot tables inside of Google Sheets. Well, what about charts? I've got all these numbers and this nice summarized data, but now I want to visually display that data. I want to create a chart based off my pivot table, or based off of my monthly budget that we worked with earlier, right? Whatever it might be. I want something visual. Let's take a look at how to create charts inside of Google Sheets. So first off, I'm on my pivot table tab that I created earlier. I'm going to click into my pivot table, doesn't matter where. I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to insert a chart. All right. And there's my chart based off of my pivot table. Now, your pivot table contains row headings, right? We got our various sales individuals. We got column headings, right? Based on the different years. And we've got some grand totals. And all of that data should have come over into the chart. I can see my years, I can see my sales individuals, and I got my grand total inside there. Well, maybe I don't want the grand total. Remember earlier we saw you can turn the grand total off. If I go back to my pivot table, I'm gonna make sure I'm clicked into there. I'll find my salesperson and I'm gonna turn off the show totals. Oh, look at that. They're connected. Said, oh, you removed it? Boop. It's gone. No longer need it. I don't want it in the chart anyways. Hey, well, what if I remove something else? Let's say I get rid of the years. So I go back into my pivot table editor. I'll find columns and year, and I'm going to X that one off. I'll just turn it off. Ooh, look at that. So now my pivot table is just summarizing sales individuals and giving me grand total per year, and it's giving me that inside this nice little column chart. How cool is that? Right? Very quickly to be able to make updates to your data and a response within your chart as well. Now, if I click on that, I can move the chart around, I can resize it and so on. Let's say the chart type. Well, this is nice, but with the type of data here, maybe a pie chart might better represent this data, right? So if I go to the chart, I'm going to go to the three little dots in the corner. And from here, I'm going to go to Edit Charts. And this will open up my chart editor panel on the right-hand side. Underneath Setup, our first option is Chart Type. So I'll go to the drop-down there. They've got some suggested types, and then they got some standard charts down below, and there's a number of them to pull from. Let's see, I'm just going to grab the standard pie chart, and there's my chart. Make sure I grab that chart. Now the title there, I don't really like that. It's just picked up on the years. I'm going to give that a double click, and I'm just going to say sales by salesperson. There we go. That looks a little better. But we've got a chart, something a little more visual to represent that summarized data. Now I created this based off of a pivot table, but if I were to go back to the sales worksheet that we worked with earlier, I could click into there and I can create my chart based off of that data as well. It doesn't have to be a pivot table. It could be any summarized data spreadsheet that you want to be able to visually display that content. So try this out. You can start with your pivot table. You can move from there, but it's just click into your data, go to insert, and you got your chart operation right there. To edit the chart, there's loads of options. With the chart selected, three little dots, edit chart, and you'll get your chart editor on the right-hand side. Make sure you try it out. We've seen a few functions that you might use inside of Excel and how they translate to Google Sheets. We've seen the most common one, the sum function. We've seen a little bit more advanced one utilizing the if function. And we've brought in some nested functions within the if, like the and the min function. Mentioned earlier, inside of Excel, there's a few hundred functions built into that application. Quite a few of the more common functions, plus some others, reside inside of Google Sheets. Let's take a look at perhaps a more advanced function that you might use inside of Excel and how you would use it inside of Google Sheets. We're going to look at the VLOOKUP function. Now this exercise is going to take two worksheets. The first one is the VLOOKUP function worksheet. So imagine this. Somebody's giving you a list of employee IDs. Some list, whatever it is, some subset list of all the employees. They need the rest of the information filled out based on those IDs. This is where the VLOOKUP is going to help us. All of this data, first name, last name, department, pay rate, is all contained on the master employee list. Let's take a look at that one. This is the complete list, all the employees and all their information. The person that sent us this short list of IDs just needs the information for these employees. Maybe it's part of their department or part of their project team or whatever it might be. So in steps the VLOOKUP. If you haven't used the VLOOKUP, highly recommend it. It's a great way to look up information between two sheets. You could use it to pull information that you need based on an ID or a value, or you could use it to compare two lists to see if records live between the two lists. We're going to take a look at it here inside of Google Sheets. So my first step, I'm going to go to C3. I want to get the first name for employee 1054. So I'm going to bring in equals VLOOKUP, and I'll open up a parentheses. Now, this function is done almost identically to the way that you would do it inside of Excel. The only really difference is the names that Google Sheets uses within their arguments. So here you can see we got the VLOOKUP function. The first argument is called search key. Inside of Excel, it's called your lookup value, but they're the same thing. So my first step is the VLOOKUP wants to know, well, you're looking for first name, but how am I going to find that? What am I searching for in order to get the first name that you want? Well, in my case, it's going to be cell B3. Now, ultimately, I want to copy this formula down and potentially to the right. So I'm going to modify that reference just a little bit. I'm going to put a $sign just to the left of the B column reference. This way the column B is locked, it's absolute, that'll never change, but the row can adjust because I want to copy it down to other rows. So $B3, the B column is now fixed, is now absolute. So that's the first part. That's what I'm looking for. Look for this ID in order to give me back what I want. So I'm going to do comma. The next thing it wants to know is the range. This is where it's going to look. So I'm going to go to my master employee list, and I'm going to grab from A2 all the way down to I38. A2 to I38. And I want that to be absolute. So I'm going to highlight it. And on my keyboard, this is a shortcut key that also resides inside of Excel. I'll hit F4, function key F4, and it will turn that reference, A2 to I38, to an absolute reference. That's great. That'll never change. Then I'm going to do a comma. The next thing it wants to know, they're calling it index. Inside of Excel, they call it the index, the column index num. This wants to know which column to return once it finds the proper ID. So in this case, we want the first name, which is column number 3. So I'm just going to put a 3 in there, comma. And the last thing they're saying is sorted. Inside of the Excel version, it's the, I'm forgetting the name all of a sudden. But this is the one that wants to know if you want to find the exact match or the closest match. Here, I want to find the exact match, so I'm going to put false in there. I'll close the parentheses, and I'm going to hit my enter key. And we got back Howard. So 1054, employee ID number 1054. There's 1054, and the first name is Howard. We're good to go. So now I can copy that down, and I've got all the employees there. Let's see, suggested details. They've modified my formula. They changed the B3, which I had the B column as an absolute. They removed that absolute. I want the absolute, so I'm going to say no. I'm going to reject that suggestion. Here's why. So my next step is I want to copy that over because I want to get the last name. So I'll use the fill handle. I'm going to drag that over, but I get Howard again. Hey, it's giving me back a good result. It's giving me back a valid value for employee 1054, but it's just the wrong one. I want last name. Well, last name is in the second column. So back to VLOOKUP, Howard, we're going to change the column index num, or the index inside of Google Sheets VLOOKUP, to a 2. I'll hit my enter key, and there's Smith. And let's make sure, yes, I want to fill that in, and we're good to go. And I can do the same. I can drag over department. Oh, we're getting Smith again, because department is 1, 2, 3, 4th column. So I'll modify that index value to 4, and it'll fill it in for me. So this is your VLOOKUP inside of Google Sheets. If you've used it inside of Excel, it should feel pretty similar. Names are a little bit different, but the function is really the same. Try this one out. We're going to take a look at one more feature here that both Excel and Google Sheets share in common. Although this one is a bit different, we're going to talk about macros, how we can automate commands inside of our spreadsheet environment. Now within Excel, macros use a language called VBA, Visual Basic for Applications. Now for us end users of the Excel application, we have what's called the macro recorder inside of Excel, where we essentially just record the steps that we perform, or Excel records the steps that we perform, and it writes it all down inside of VBA so that we can automate it the next time. The next time we say, oh, I want to perform those same steps again, we run the macro, Excel looks at its notes or what it wrote down, and it just repeats those same steps. Well, we have something very similar here inside of Google Sheets. Macros, but it's not VBA. It's not Visual Basic for Applications. It's called AppScript. Okay, but we don't need to know any of the scripting language because Google Sheets also has a macro recorder similar to Excel. So we're going to take a look at how you can automate some simple tasks inside a Google Sheets environment and then have it do it for you. So here's the setup. I've got two sheets. The first one is called macros, and we got a simple list out here. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns in it. Then I've got another worksheet here called test macro, where we're going to test the macro out. It's the exact same sheet, okay? Same columns, same records, and so on. But the idea is, let's imagine somebody sends you a file. Perhaps it's a data dump from some other system. Maybe it's a text file that you've now opened up into Google Sheets, and you need to clean up the data to make it presentable and ready to be worked with. Maybe you want to convert this into a pivot table to summarize the data. Well, there's some things that are missing here. For example, we don't have column headings inside this data set, right? I want it to say salesperson, product, quantity, price, total. I want those headers up there. That way, when we do things like sorting and filtering and pivot tables, we could use those headers. Well, if this is something I do daily or weekly or whatever, I don't want to have to do it every time I get the new data dump. So I'm going to create a macro, record myself doing those steps, as well as some formatting with the data. And then the next day, when I get new data, I just run the macro and it does all the work for me. Whatever I recorded the first time, it just repeats those same steps. Let's take a look at how you can automate and create macros inside of Google Sheets. So my first step is I need to identify what I need to do. I want to add a row at the top of this list. I want to put some headers in there. I want to format the headers, make them bold and change colors and stuff like that. And I want to format the D and E column as currency. So there's a few things I need to do, but I want to record myself performing those tasks. So to start recording a macro inside of Google Sheets, I'm going to go up to the menus. I was about to call it the ribbon. Go to my menus at the top of the screen, go to extensions, macros, and I'm going to record macro. All right, now at this very point, we are recording. You got a little window down below, gives you some settings. You can see we got the little flashing icon. We are recording right now. So anything I do in this interface, it's going to write it down. It's going to record the steps that you're taking. Now I do have the option for absolute and relative macro references. For right now, this example, we're going to stick with the default, the absolute reference. All right, so we are recording. So my first step, I'm going to right click on row 1 and I'm going to insert one row above. All right. And if you pay attention to this little flashing area, it will show you what it just recorded. So now I'm going to go to A1 and I'm going to put in a value. We'll call it salesperson. I'm going to hit my tab key. This is going to be product. Oh, make sure I spell that right. And then I've got quantity. I've got price. And I've got total. All right. Now I'm going to select that entire row there and I'm going to format it. Maybe I'll make it bold. I'll change the color. I'm going to go white for just a moment, but now I'm going to change the background color, the fill color. Let's make that blue. I'll put a border in there, maybe just a bottom border, and so on. You can do whatever you like. You can format those cells. Now again, Google Sheets has been busy writing it all down. Oh, you did this, you wrote this in, you typed this in, you formatted this, and so on. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to grab from D2 all the way down to the bottom, and I want to get the E column as well because I want to format those as a currency. So if I click into D2, I'm going to use some keyboard shortcuts here. I'm going to do Control Shift down arrow, select that column, Control Shift right arrow, and select the second column. Now with that highlighted, I'll go back up to my toolbar, and I'm going to go into my number formatting, and I'm going to change that to, I'm going to do an accounting style. All right, looks good. And that's all I want to do. Just those steps right there. Insert a row, put the headers in, format the headers, and format the numeric values as currency. We'll call it done. So now I'm done recording. I'm going to come down to my little recording box, and I'll hit save. All right, so I get to give this a name. I'm just going to call this format data. That's good. I can give it a shortcut key if you'd like. Whatever you want to use inside there, Control Alt Shift and whatever. It's optional. I'm not going to use it, so I'm just going to hit save. There are other methods to running your macros as well. So we did get a confirmed macro saved event here. Now just a quick FYI, remember this is in the browser. This is all taking place on the browser with an internet connection. I have seen this fail occasionally, and it'll let you know macro failed to save. In that case, you could try saving again. You might want to try re-recording, close the document, reopen it, try again. You just want to make sure that your internet connection is there and strong and everything's working right. But I have seen it fail a few times. As long as we get the macro saved in a positive, we're good to go. All right, so now I want to try this out. We've just recorded those steps. The next day rolls around, you get the new data dump. Now I want to format it. So I'm going to go to the test macro worksheet, and I'm going to run this macro. So I'll go back to extensions, macros, and right there is my format data macro. I'll give that a click. Give it just a moment. Oh, authorization required. A script attached to this document needs permission to run. So this is good. If you think back to Excel, if you ever deal with macros there, you open up a document that contains a macro, right away you should get a warning that lets you know, hey, this thing contains a script, a macro. Do you want to enable it? Here inside of Google Sheets, it's just letting us know before we run it that, oh, are you sure? So I'm going to go ahead and continue, and it's going to ask me to verify who I am. Yep, that's who I am, and I'm going to allow it. All right, we'll give it a moment. Nope, actually, I got to run it again. Extensions, macros, format data. We'll give it a moment, and there it is. All done. Got the headers in there, nice and formatted. My two columns are formatted, all through button press. So you find those tasks that become repetitive for you, something you do all the time, and you record a macro and get it to do it for you. Try this out. It's just underneath extensions, macros, record macro, and anything you do inside the interface, it's going to record it so it'll do it for you later. Try it out. So that's it. This is just a little bit of the features that you can take from your Microsoft Excel knowledge and translate into Google Sheets. A lot of those same features that you're already familiar with from Excel live right here inside of Google Sheets. So if you're now entering into a organization that made the migration from Microsoft Excel into Google Sheets, or this is just where they live, or it's convenience, whatever the case may be, that knowledge that you have translates pretty seamlessly. There's going to be some features inside of Excel that you love, that you can't live without, that unfortunately aren't inside of Google Sheets as of this moment. Okay? But a lot of those common features and some really neat ones, plus some stuff inside of Google Sheets that isn't inside of Excel, you've got a tool right there inside the browser. You're going to be able to store your documents inside of your Google Drive, your My Drive, organize your content right there, and gain access to the application all through the browser. You got an internet connection, you can get in there and work with your data. So I hope you enjoyed this video. You learned something new. If you have, and you enjoyed it, learned something new, make sure you like the video, give it a thumbs up. That helps me out. And subscribe if you enjoy content like this, so you can get notifications when I upload new videos. Until next time, have fun inside of Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, and I'll see you in the next video.